you don't mind, we can start. Welcome to the final panel of today. Starting with a long introduction of my panelists until panelist number 5 has joined us too. Well, I think almost everyone has been introduced today to the audience. And as I said, we do it like Jesus Christ, where 2 or 3 are getting together in my name, I will be among them. So glad to have you here, even if it's a small crowd today. I'm starting with my very right. This gentleman is called Mark Diekmann from Germany. Mark is the CEO of a company called Windfillers. That's a startup which offers B2B multiplayer solutions that allows players to play together, to share experience, and offers new dimensions of social gaming. In one sentence, you can imagine you can play a slot machine with other players together in one room, in one virtual room. Next to him is Philip Sosnowski. It's a person with more than 20 years of experience in the gaming industry. He is currently serving as CEO of SB Software, which is a company that offers turnkey gambling software solutions in multiple jurisdictions. You're also we're advising the board of GreenCube and Novomatic Digital and Entertainment division. Well, next to me here on my left side, we have Dr. Arthur Stadler from Vienna, gaming lawyer from Vienna, also very well experienced. He studied the law in Vienna, of course, but also in Madrid. Served interim-wise at the European Court of Justice in Luxembourg. And your special expertise is quite a lot. I'm just summarizing its regulatory stuff, esports, data protection law, IT, intellectual property, finally, did I forget? There's a crypto, of course, right, good. And last not least, the one who came late, gives us some additional break time. Dr. Simon Planzer has been introduced here a couple of times, founding partner of Planzer Law in Switzerland, lecturer at the University of St. Gallen, also director of the Competence Center for Gambling, is it gambling research, gambling entertainment? And gaming and entertainment of that same university. So that's my introduction. We are complete. We can start with the DACH panel, meaning we're covering Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and as an addition, and just for you as a bonus, because you were here and not outside for drinks, you get also some information on Liechtenstein today, which is small but very weird in his current gambling regulation development. So I'm keen to learn what happens there. We start with Austria because there's much to say about Austria. Very exciting developments. Before you, Arthur, start sharing your insights, I just want to mention I was in Vienna in January at a symposium at the University of Vienna, and we were discussing gambling law. And there was someone from the Ministry of Finance, who is the responsible regulator in Vienna, and he announced very proudly they're going to consider changing the law in Austria and moving away from monopoly structures step by step and year by year, maybe within 2, 3, 5 years, to a more liberalized system. And then there was a change in government. And then what happens now? So what's the impact of the new government to Austrian regulation?
Yeah, thank you, Jörg, and hello everybody to this super late stage. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for the introduction words. Yes, in Austria we have politically very new and historical developments. Just a brand new government, and politically it's very special for us. It's the first time in history that we have 3 parties sharing and participating within one coalition. And we've seen the coalition agreement, which brings us to our developments in the market. What you were telling is that was in January, and Austria was still in struggling if we get a right-wing or central right-wing government or the one which is now in power. And by that time, we were pretty confident with a central right-wing government. Typically, that's the time where you can think of a regulation or liberalization. When more central powers or left powers are in power, it's not so, the tendency is not so much that there will be a shift from the existing status quo in Austria. But looking at the coalition agreement, legally speaking, they have a heading saying Weiterentwicklung of the monopoly, so further development of the monopoly. And depends whom you ask, everybody reads it in a different manner. Some people read it as that's the task for a new re-regulation, or others would read it as that is a status quo cemented as before, keeping with the monopoly. But what the Austrian government, the new one, did within a week, being in power, they dramatically raised the pretty attractive taxation on sports betting. In the past, or right now, we still have a taxation of 2% on turnover for sports betting, be it in the internet betting, online, offline, licensed or unlicensed. They're all obliged to pay 2% on turnover. That will be, as of 1st of April, 5%, coming to a level like in Germany. So the attractiveness of the Austrian market is probably in question. And as every government right now in Europe, especially the Austrian government, needs a lot of money. We are just in the press that the Austrian budget is lacking a lot of millions, and that's why they're searching further possibilities. So we expect that not only sports betting, the tax on sports betting is to be raised, but further other segments. So that will really put in question the attractiveness of the Austrian market.
This decision has been made, so it will be applied very soon?
I can just look into the future, and I can just read the coalition agreement. They put a figure of how many millions they would need for the first, second, third step. And as a first step, that was explicitly written down that they will raise the Gebührengesetz, which is the betting fees, from 2% to 5%. We thought that we will get step by step, but then we were very overwhelmed and surprised that they made it in 1 week, as from 2% right to 5%.
Does that mean that the good times are over, even with regard to sports betting? It's very convenient conditions for operators in the past?
Seems like, yeah. We have a tax level like in Germany as of then, and same method of taxation as in Germany. Even the unlicensed, but also the licensed operators will be taxed. And some other news is written down in the coalition agreement. We will finally get an allegedly independent gambling commission. That's super urgent already. I mean, there's the EU tender rules applicable since always. And finally, Austria will implement this, as well as for the gambling and especially gambling licenses, land-based licenses. That will be crucial because we have tender proceedings that will be or are to be made by end of 2027. We'll have land-based casino licenses, 6, and the one and only, the monopolized online casino license, which will be awarded by 2027. So without an independent gambling authority, that will be very, very hard to
Well, at least
this
is good news, and hopefully they're taking over with experience or build it up as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting that even however they do the tender proceedings, that will be challenged to courts. First, second, third instance, up to the Constitutional Court. That will be a long fight. One good news is always also that they kind of unbundled all the multiple roles of the Minister of Finance. As you know, the Minister of Finance is obviously the competent person for a tax collector, but also in Austria for monitoring the betting and gambling market. But historically, the Minister of Finance is also a shareholder within the monopoly, Casinos Austria and Austrian Lotteries. So that's a multiple
40%.
role, and supervising the licensee that is a very strange composition of roles. So that will be a bit of unbundled. So the role of being owner within Kazakh and ÖLG, Österreichische Lotterien, that will come to the Ministry of Economics, and the monitoring of the market still remains with the Ministry of Finance. Still.
To me, if you say it's continuing the monopoly structure, that to me it's a clear message that nothing will change, really. It's not that sort of liberalization which has been expected when they announced it in January. But when do we know more about this? When is this more clarified?
You asking questions I don't really know, really.
You're simply to answer my questions. Okay.
Really,
Okay.
I don't know.
We will
I'm
monitor the further
within
development.
Next 9 to 15 months, I guess. As soon as they need money, I think then they will get to a new structure. That's,
so we will get an update at the next Prague Gaming Summit here in April next year. So it's worth to come back. Well, let's stick to the Alps again and further with Simon. There's a new casino structure in Switzerland, which, by the way, as we all know, it's not part of the European Union. That's why it's possible to operate land-based casinos and exclusively operate online casinos with that land-based and then attached online casino license. But what's new? What's changing?
Thank you. Well, on the EU law note, in fairness, we also have Belgium and we have Hungary and I believe even Croatia as well, where this has been in place in spite of
yes,
rulings
because
of the Court
there's
of
no
Justice.
litigation. The industry arranged with the licensed casino operators, and they never went to court. It's not in line with European Union law. And in Hungary, there was 2018, the sporting odds decision of the ECJ saying that is not possible. You cannot require a land-based license in order to apply for an online license. So what they do is not correct, but they do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And in Switzerland, they are allowed to do so because they don't have an ECJ.
At least official, right? Exactly, yeah. So, yes, as you say correctly, and I should just for disclosure say I was taken by surprise. Sorry to my co-panelists. I did read long break 16:30, but apparently we're having a session in parallel to a long break. So, coming back to your question, Jörg, indeed the Swiss market has been relicensed as of January 2025 for 20 years, with 20 years licenses in the land-based, and in Switzerland, as you noted correctly, the online is linked to the land-based, so that means that in principle any of these newly 22 casinos can offer online. At the same time, there was a relicensing for the online at the same time of submissions, and 12 online offers have been approved by the government. Having said that, in Switzerland there's no fixed licensing window for online, so any other casino, number 13, 14, 15, 16 and so on, could apply at any time to have their license extended to the online. And then new players in the market. There are 2 new casinos that can open as of January 2025. Not yet opened, but could in principle be opened according to the concession, the license. One is nearby Lausanne, and the other one is in the city of Winterthur, so just half an hour north of Zurich. The one in Winterthur is owned by the Swiss Casino Group out of Zurich, and the one in Lausanne is owned, or will be owned, if you want so, by the group Tranchant, which is a French group that also hold the casino in Basel. The Swiss Casino Group out of Zurich has given up actually the Schaffhausen location, and instead will now be using, as of 2026, the Winterthur location. And interestingly enough, they have gotten a special approval by the government to continue their operations into 26 in Schaffhausen until their new casino will open in Winterthur. So they needed a special permission for that. What else? I mentioned the online casinos. No strict licensing windows, indeed. The market has actually developed rather positively in the online, so there are many more games nowadays available than in the beginning. no tax raises. The taxation is already high enough, which is brutally progressive, and that's why a couple of casinos have tried to break the progression by having two offers in the online. But I will leave it there.
This new development offer opportunities for foreign investors?
Yeah.
Or B2B partners?
Yeah, definitely. So the one of the two online casinos, new ones, already went online. And I should also mention that in principle for international B2Cs and B2Bs, you can collaborate with that land-based casino on virtually any line of services. That is not restricted. The casino, however, is expected by the regulation to fulfill certain core roles by themselves. How realistic this always is in reality is another question, but at least collaborations are in principle possible for all kind of services. Where it's not possible in the first line, say certain AML duties that have to be fulfilled by the casino, it's still possible to cater services in the second line, kind of assisting to it.
And are there any changes regarding the online casino offerings, or maybe some developments, regulation?
Yeah, so in a former panel, the evaluation was mentioned. There is actually, as of this year, an evaluation ongoing, quite an extensive evaluation of the law. But in fact, the background was not criticism during the pandemic, but when the law was passed in 2017, it was already very controversial. There were a couple of controversial aspects about it. The ring fencing, that is not in line with general economic policy in Switzerland. The online blocking was definitely also a big issue, was referred to as censorship, an alliance of young parties from left to right opposed the law. And so that has steered opposition. The law was ultimately passed very clearly in a popular vote, but parliamentarians back then said we want evaluation after 5 years and not just after 10 years. Now ultimately it's a bit later than 5 years due to delays. The Department of Justice argues it with the pandemic, that it is justified to have it after, say, 7 years rather than 5 years.
Do you expect any specific results from the evaluation?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of points that really need improvement, no matter whether you argue for a liberalized market or for a ring-fenced. And one of these issues is that many of the blocked players on that blocking list, so I'm talking about a player list, people who are not supposed to play. Many of these blocked players, they are not on that list because they have a gambling issue, but because they did not hand in the financial documents on time. So usually a casino will give you 2-3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks to hand in, when a certain flag goes up, warning flag, to hand in financial documents. If you don't do that, you're automatically blocked. Or the casino is supposed to block you automatically.
Okay. I think the blocking topic will be interesting later if we talk about Liechtenstein too, but for a while let's move to Germany. Just a 1-minute overview of the regulation in Germany in a nutshell, 1 minute only. It's based on an interstate treaty. It now covers every sector of the gaming industry, I would say, which is relevant, excluding secondary lotteries. These are still forbidden, but online poker, sports betting, retail, online, also virtual slot machines, which is just slot machines games. You would call it a casino game, online casino, but online casino is table games, live games in Germany, not subject to a nationwide license. This can be issued by the German states, state by state, either to a state-owned operator, then it would be a monopoly, or to a private operator by way of a tender. That happened in Schleswig-Holstein, northern state in the north. It will happen in North Rhine-Westphalia, largest state, 18 million people in North Rhine-Westphalia, and then no other German state decided for offering these opportunities and licenses to private operators. I think Bavaria started as a monopoly. Baden-Württemberg is about to do so. There are some German states saying we do not want it. And Hesse is just going to change the law. Very interesting. They had a different solution, which means it's a private structured company, but at least there must be 2 cities of Hesse be among the shareholders, which have casino licenses, bricks and mortar casino licenses. This could be Wiesbaden, Bad Homburg, or Kassel. And it was intended to use Kassel and Wiesbaden. And now they changed the law, which is just happening at the moment, and delete everything which deals with online casinos, saying, oh, we don't think there is a legal certainty because there is probably some issues with European Union law and other factors. So probably Hesse will not have and offer any regulation. Meaning, if you want to play roulette in Germany, you're welcome to do so. The black market welcomes you as a customer outside of Bavaria, Baden-Württemberg, and Schleswig-Holstein at the moment. That's the fact. The law came into force in July 21, so we're losing time and time and time. Now, Philip, you're wearing 2 hats for today. One hat goes back into the age when there was no licensing in Germany, but the whole market was targeting customers in Germany very successfully. Interesting days based on protective arguments, based on the European freedom of services, probably jurisprudence, never accepted by German courts, but a matter of fact. So this was before licensing came in place and before the interstate treaty, the first one, 2020, offered the opportunity back then for sports betting, 1.5 years later for these virtual slot machine games. You were the CEO of a company targeting this market in these days, and now you are CEO of a B2B company, also focusing on casino-related methods in the German market after the new, or within the new era where licensing is possible. So the landscape changed completely. What is your experience before and after, and what are the main differences in your view? Very, very interesting question.
That's true, Jörg. Like in terms of the legal side of the German market, Jörg is always the best source of the feedback from that side, so I will not comment on that. However, from the operation point of view, that is true that I have experience from the time before the regulation came into place in Germany and now when the regulation is here. So there is a big difference. So when I was a part of management board of one of the biggest online casino in Germany, 80% of our profits were done by the 20% of the players. So the casino was but naturally the most profits came from the high rollers, from the serious players. Nowadays, under the new regulation from GGL, it's very difficult to run the casino in the same way. You have a 1,000 euro deposit monthly limit, you have 5 seconds spin duration, you have 1 euro per spin limitation, so you have no autoplay, no, as Jörg said, no live casino in place. So it's very difficult to run casino operations in Germany in the same way. What is important nowadays is what we are now experiencing at SB Software when having experience of the German operators is the products. So we are always as an industry looking for the solutions how to retain the current players in the German casinos. So we don't have the tools anymore, the regulation environment to target the serious high rollers players. So we must provide the best possible product to the existing players, so for the players we have. So that's what we are doing at SB Software. That's what all the software providers are doing to keep the players on our side and to give them such a good product that they will not think about playing with the black market, which is a huge problem for the German regulation, I think.
It's interesting you mentioned this proportion, 20 and 80%. That's not just figures you experience in your own company. I think this is very representative for almost any sector in the gaming industry. I remember a long time ago when the poker hype started in Germany, we had these figures. It was the same 80-20%, meaning 80% of the gross gaming revenue is generated by 20%. Let it be 5% more or less. That happened was applicable to the other sectors like slots and even for sports betting. And even if you don't call them all high rollers probably spend huge sums of money, but the majority spending a lot more than 1,000 a month. This, I would say this is really the market we're talking about. And you can imagine if there's a deposit limit in Germany, which is maximum 30,000, applicable for 1% of your player base for a sports betting operator, you can imagine where those play who used to deposit more money and to stake more money, they're gone. I think they're still the same players, but this is the massive black market issue. And I will want to talk to you also to the Austrian and the Liechtenstein, maybe, or let's say Swiss experience. How do you estimate black market proportion? We can do that later, because that's the challenge. If the law changes, particularly in Austria, there will be an impact. We got this impact with restrictions. I can remember in the transitional period, which was in 2020 to 2021, when those operators who wanted to apply for a license were asked to comply with future license regulation requirements, they lost up to 80% of the gross gaming revenue overnight. And it wasn't gone from Germany, it just was channeled to the grey or black market, and they could celebrate these issues.
I remember, Jörg, that transition period which you are mentioning, and I remember that one particular casino that just few weeks before this deadline before the end of the transitional period, that this casino invested a huge money into acquisition marketing to be able to build a database for the after transitional period. So they spend really a massive amount of money. They build a database, and for a couple of months later, they work on the retention of the players. So everyone knew what is coming. Everyone knew what to expect, but you know.
Did they apply and got a license?
Probably yes.
Don't drop any names. But okay,
Yes,
right, right. As a software provider in this market, these are not very attractive conditions. Do you think there's still room to invest into new products, into product development, and trying to believe on the future of this market, or is it wasted time?
It's not waste of time. I think that the reason why we are all here is that we still believe that the positive changes will come, right? So from the perspective of software provider, I can say that the most hardworking and the most time-consuming is to prepare the setup for the new brand, which is fully compliant with the German regulation. So we all know, we have experience in that, so we know what has to be done, but it takes time because you need to connect with the Lugas, you need to go all these papers, certify the games. So no matter how hard we'll be working, how efficient, it takes time. So the first challenge is the setup, and later, we cannot do as much as we would like to. We cannot use our experience as much as we'd like to because we are limited with the regulation. So the gamification, maybe Mark will tell more, is it's a big thing we can do, but we still can do it up to some extent, right? The same with the payment methods, the same with the tools that on the other markets usually are working, but in the German market, they cannot work, right? But I am positive. I think that the German market is huge. It's according to the numbers, the third biggest European market after UK and Italy. So there is still a cake to fight for, right? A big cake to fight for. What is interesting, Jörg, is when I read the latest numbers released by the Federal Ministry of Finance in Germany for the 2024, I saw that the income from the tax from the sports betting went up, from poker went up, but from the casino went down with 20%. So the open question is how the Ministry of Finance will comment on that. So if the income from the taxes is going down from this particular vertical, I think that some action must be taken, right?
I spoke to someone at a conference just a few weeks ago in Stuttgart in Germany who has, I would say, certain impact on regulation. He was from the lotteries in Germany, and I told him, look, the taxes go down, the revenue, and he said, then we have done everything correctly, because he thinks if the taxes go down, less people play. which is just stupid. I mean, everybody knows that, but this is the way discussions are led in Germany. Mark, gamification means it's fun for the players, it makes the offerings more attractive. Your specific product with Windfellers also adds some social component. People could play together even in the internet, online with slot machines. So you are a B2B provider. You don't have to deal with customers, which are the players, but you need your companies, your B2B partners, be successful operating casinos, for instance, or other forms of online gaming. From your perspective, how do you assess the German market? And I would like to mention this. Mark is the one whose former company built up the very first online casino in Germany that was licensed in 2003 or 4 or 1 was it? 5, sorry. Okay, so I thought it was earlier. This is when we met first. It started in Hamburg for 3 months. Then they realized, there is no legal basis. We have to change the law. A change in the coalition in Hamburg. The law was never changed. And the owners moved it to Wiesbaden in Hesse, and then they run it for another 3 years, I guess. Very successfully, step by step. It was just live table filming. So welcome to the group of dinosaurs in the industry with a long experience.
Yeah, maybe I tell a little bit about the past. This was the worldwide first online casino. On the land-based side was a regulated duty. From the Casino Hamburg we started, and we make 5% of the player database were playing online, and we make around about 15% of the revenues of the casino. It was a very successful business, only with one game, only with one roulette. Yeah, because the roulette was a duty. The game have to play inside the rooms of the casino, in the protected area. Therefore, online slots, what they came up in the Caribbean in these days, was forbidden in Germany. And then we moved to Hessen and Wiesbaden, and this was a very successful business. And as we said to myself, okay, let's proceed from there. And then we had to stop this because the regulator said, no, it's forbidden anymore, and it's not allowed.
It was the new interstate treaty in 2008 saying no more online gaming.
Yes.
To protect the monopoly.
Yes. This is Tip 24, for example, the biggest lottery online, moved to UK, and other left Germany. I remember the time we started with Oryx Gaming in Germany. That was a huge success in Schleswig-Holstein. When we invited to, Jörg, remember this time, hundreds of people came from worldwide to listen to the regulator, and were very excited what happened in Schleswig-Holstein in these days. And we started running open casinos there, and it was a good time. It was a upcoming time. Only was it's not the wealthiest state in Germany, North Germany. It's land-based. Yeah, it's a countryside, two big cities, Kiel and Lübeck, but it's not very wealthy. But the industry came.
Yeah, and it was a balanced regulation. So you've seen all this. Now today, what do you think?
Today we see, I think, a button from the last year to this year. I think it's not going more down. We see the requirements of the online casinos with €1 per spin, 5-second spin, 5 minutes break after 1 hour playing. It's a killer. It should be changed. When you have a limit, you mentioned this, €1,000 limit, or you can raise it to 30,000. Mathematics, this means when you play with 1,000 limit, you can play 14 hours. Yeah, or when you raise to 30,000, you can play 420 hours. Nobody's playing this. It's boring, and the high rollers are in the international market. That's it. That's fact. And 80% of this market is playing outside Germany. But I think the GGL, they exactly know this. Yeah, they listen. but they have not the power to change it, because the shareholders of the GGL, the licensor, is the state's secretaries, and they are so far away of the reality. And they meet one time, two times, you know this better than me, and hopefully something will change. From my point of view, as a member of this industry for 20 years, I see it in the audience to see what's happened in the Caribbean, Curacao, Isle of Man, Malta. We also sold this company Edict to the Gauselmann Group. We moved to Isle of Man, we moved to Malta as a software supplier, set up a lot of online casinos. They are quite successful, and we'll proceed from there. And Oryx Gaming also proceeding well in the German market, and now they are US based. What I see, we see under these regulations and requirements, we need more socialization, gamification, to have something for the players to have more fun. Yeah, you see only to play solo game session what you mostly do in the Caribbean or Curacao license black market. It's you can play there with $200 per spin. Yeah, and this for some people who can do this, it's fun, but in Germany not. And we have also tournaments, moderators or streamers who are very powerful and collecting a lot of followers. And in this case, we develop a platform what we integrate in this market to get more community building. Play with your friends together. You go to a casino mostly with friends, with your wife or with your boy group, and have some fun. And you start with, okay, everybody have $50 euros in the pocket, and let's start with this, and we'll see after 2 hours who have something in his pocket again, and almost, and then we go for a drink. And this we want to see in the German market, that we protect our players to play together, to spend some time for communication, to see each other during gameplay, that somebody's maybe drunken or not. This could be also a good opportunity for the regulator. What you see in the street casinos or in the land-based casinos, there are educated people who show around, is somebody drunken, is somebody playing too strong or too much, or is this, and this is what we don't see in the online world. And therefore we try to build a product that the people can play with friends and see, okay, come on, Carl or Claudia, I think it's time to stop now, because I see your bottle of wine is empty now, and let's stop playing.
You need a new one. If we, at the moment, we cannot enhance the conditions for RTP and everything else, so we have to add some more attractive value to get the player play with us. I think it's a good idea from the industry to make a move.
It's also difficult because the industry is so disappointed about the market and not open to go with me to the GGL and say, okay, let's have a discussion. Yeah, because everybody's sitting there and wait and see. Hopefully something will happen soon. And therefore, this is the situation maybe in total in Germany. Everybody's waiting, something will happen, and we'll see when it's happening. We don't know. Yeah, and we find now the way to talk direct to the regulator to get in power with operators and do something for this country.
Good luck. You want to add something?
Yes, I would like to add to Mark's comment that it came to my mind when I was listening to Mark that what the regulation restrictions in Germany deprive the players from, like, I mean, the fun. We as software providers, we are doing our best to bring back this fun to the play, right? Because if the player, when I talked with one of the German player, regular slot player, he told me, Philip, I feel when I'm playing with all these regulations, I feel like I'm trapped, like in a trap. So what we, like soft providers, are doing is we are trying to bring back to him some entertainment, still with obeying the regulations, right? So we must bring back the fun to the German player as a software provider, what the GGL is taking away from
Thank
him.
you very much. Simon, in Liechtenstein, something happened which was quite unexpected. At first sight, it looked like a change in regulation, but it wasn't. It was applying rules which I think are mandatory. But let us know what happened, and it affects the land-based casino industry, which has been established not too far away. If you look into the past, it's just something for investors, a horrible scenario.
Correct. So for those who have followed and know that Liechtenstein has actually the highest density of casinos in Europe, at the very least, higher than Monaco. Can you believe it? So many casinos in very small geographical surface linked between Austria and Switzerland and nearby Germany as well. So interestingly located. And what you were referring to, Jörg, is the entry into effect of a state treaty between Liechtenstein and Switzerland that demands for the mutual recognition of blocking lists, player blocking lists, in both jurisdictions. Now, the case is very clear. Switzerland has had a far bigger interest in such a treaty being signed or agreement being signed than Liechtenstein. That was very clear from the outset, and one can even ask the question, why did Liechtenstein ever sign this? So there was a strong push from Swiss casinos towards the Swiss government to do something about supposedly blocked players from Switzerland going to Liechtenstein to play. That is only one part of the picture, because also the odds offers were simply better in Liechtenstein than in Switzerland. But in any event, mid-January, this treaty entered into effect and had immediately an effect in the Liechtenstein casinos. So there are much fewer visitors. Like people can tell immediately that there are less visitors in these casinos. And of course, similar to water, when you put some resistance to it, it will go somewhere else, right? So these players are now to be found in the casino in Bregenz, nearby Bregenz, and Bregenz is very happy about the situation.
So just that I understand what happens. If we can we say that Liechtenstein land-based casinos were very successful, probably among other reasons, because they allowed those players who were banned from playing in Switzerland to play in Liechtenstein. Mm-hmm. And now, since they are sharing the player-bearing system with Switzerland, those players have no access to the games in Liechtenstein, but there is a different player-bearing system in Austria, where Bregenz belongs to, although it's very closely located to Germany, so it's the Lake Constance area, very nice. And so they can play there. They may be addicted, but they are not part of the system in Austria.
Exactly. So again, of course, this just regards Liechtenstein and Switzerland. Austria is not bound by this, not a signatory state, neither nearby Germany. But as I said before, it would be a wrong assumption that these are all addicted players. As I explained in the Swiss, I think in the earlier panel, there is this systematic, I would say, mistake in the Swiss regulation that you very, very swiftly end up on this blocked player list. And that does not mean necessarily that you have an addiction issue. It can simply mean you didn't send in these documents on time. Could even be that the email from the casino ended up in the spam folder. So really, you can't assume that these are all addicted players, but they go somewhere for sure.
Okay, that is good news, because if we were talking about problem gamblers who are moving from one country to another to play, this is shocking to me from the perspective of responsible gaming. It's an absolute no-go, and I was surprised that it could happen, but of course this explains a lot. Yeah. But But at least there will be a part of addicted players among them.
I think that's fair to say. I think that's probably fair to say. We don't really know how many, but that's fair to say. And I did actually speak to, quite a few colleagues and good contacts in Liechtenstein. Why was that ever signed, right? Because it was so obvious that this is mainly in the interest of the Swiss casinos. Yes. And in essence, it's probably related to the overall relationship between Switzerland and, I always consider Switzerland as a small country, but then in regard to Liechtenstein, Switzerland is suddenly a very large country. And the relations between the two jurisdictions are very close. So, for instance, Liechtenstein uses the Swiss franc. Liechtenstein has the same VAT system as Switzerland. Interestingly enough, though, Liechtenstein is in the European Economic Area, and Switzerland is not. Both are in Schengen area. Switzerland does border controls for Liechtenstein. So the relations are very close. And if there is a strong wish from the Swiss side, it's usually taken, let's say, seriously by Liechtenstein.
Right. That's a very interesting development there. Though I must admit, I'm not a big friend of player-bearing systems. Don't know how you think about it, Peter, but I think if it's not self-exclusion, where the player wants to be banned from playing, if someone has no access, like your example with water, he will find somewhere else a place where he can play. And if it's not a licensed casino, no matter whether we're talking about online or land-based, it will be probably an illegal casino operator, a black market operator, where no protection at all can be expected. That's why I think it can be helpful, but finally, if you reach that stage where nobody else offers you anything, then you're out of this protected area environment and in a tunnel. That's why I think it's an escalated way to move on.
And if you allow, just on a final point of the Odyssey, the treaty was challenged in the Liechtenstein courts, at the state court, for being unconstitutional, but the challenge failed. I was then also wondering why the casinos in Liechtenstein only took that judicial road afterwards, and maybe some stronger lobbying beforehand would have been more effective.
Probably the judge studied the law in Zurich. You never know. Crossing the border. Just wanted to finally touch on the topic of black market share in your own jurisdictions. In Austria, Arthur, one thing is, of course, how do you evaluate the market share at the moment? But do you think it will change, and will change to the worst if these new regulation and taxation
define black market?
Black market to me means operators who target customers in your jurisdiction without being licensed. If I talk about those who are operating based on a nice European legal argumentation, I would call it a grey market.
Now we speak, yeah. Everybody reads it in a different manner. There are different figures, but what I can say is it's not really answering your question, but we have a monopoly in Austria, and it says a lot if you look at the figures and see that this monopoly, which should cover obviously 100% of the market, is covering 30%. So that says a lot for a monopoly. If a monopoly is not able to have at least half of the people, half of the demand, it lacks the sense of a monopoly. And on the other hand, what is the rest of the market? Yeah, the rest of the market is split by a grey and black market. Yeah, but really it depends how you look at it.
But I think you can put them on the table and say this is without a license, no matter whether we are inside the European Union or outside. Third country probably competing with monopolists.
Yeah, when we speak about online casino, there's only the one and only, the monopolist, and which covers 30%, and that's really a question of time. We have one of the latest ones in Europe who did not demolish the monopoly yet. The incumbent is pretty strong, and being in the Czech Republic, I mean, we have with the monopolist, it's a private monopolist, but the state is involved, but it's also a Czech owner involved with around, depends where you are, casinos, Austria, or Austrian lotteries, different participations. And it's also a really political issue. If you even read the name Casinos Austria, where you would think that's the state behind, but it's not, it's a private monopoly. And there's even a Czech major owner behind, and the Austrian politics is not really happy with it, to be honest. Yeah? But they will find a solution, I think. It's also a question of time where you unbundle all these participations. I think politics will find a way. Talking about the casinos, the land-based casinos, talking about the online casinos, where I think the monopoly will be end by 2027, and they will really try to open the market and find a solution at least for 3, 5, 10 operators, but not doing the same mistake like in Germany, writing down a number where you can, the limitation numbers for licenses, but having just a really high effort and really high elements and factors how to apply, and then you reduce anyway.
This German mistake was in 2012. Now it's unlimited, so there is no cap for licenses, which of course it's against European Union law. How do you think could developments in the market can have some impact? Just a few months ago, we've seen in the news that Tipico took over the retail business division of Admiral, which is one of the core brands. What is your guess? What's the impact?
It's a huge impact, to be honest. Nothing will stay the same. It's Tipico and buying and making the merger with the Admiral, mainly land-based betting stores, but also other elements. That is not the same market again. That is not, will not remain the same market. As soon as it goes through the competition proceeding, which is pending at the EU Commission as a competent authority for competition. It's not the national one, it's the European one. As soon as this is through, it's a totally different market in Austria.
There are some Austrians, they don't like Germans, so will the players stick to the brand?
Really, it will not remain the same. There are also developments within the Gaussmann Group, with Cashpoint, there was an old brand of the monopolist, the Tip 3, which is part of the Kazakh Group. That will all change a lot, really a lot. Nobody listening anymore. But that's one thing. And the second thing, I mean, even this deal is probably in question with a very high taxation. Yeah, okay. Because the taxation went from 2% turnover on 5%, which probably questions the deal as well.
Right. Due to limited time, we have now time left for maybe 20 questions from the audience. Are there any? No, everything answered and updates delivered. Any comments from the panelists? Final comments?
Yes. I have a question. I have a fun question. You mentioned majority shareholders. I have a question in relation to potential minority shareholder. I remember many years ago, one of the minority shareholders of the Austrian lottery was the Catholic Church. Yeah. Is it still the case?
No, they sold. It was not the Catholic Church itself,
but it was
the bank of the Catholic Church, the Bank Schellmann. Chatterer, yeah, right. But they sold it, and it sold, to another major shareholder. They sold it. But it was also Sacher, Hotel Sacher was one of the shareholders. It was fun when we were pleading at the European Court of Justice in the Engelmann case, where we said, hey, the licensing proceeding in Austria, how you really tend the land-based casinos, that was not made in a transparent manner. That was just below the table. And we won this case, and we showed it to the courts and to the judges, and made a little cake of the participations within the monopoly of Kazakh, and playing with the name Cake, because Sacha is also one of the shareholders of Kazakh, or was. And we said, do you really know Sacha? Do you know that these are one of the shareholders of the Austrian monopoly, saying this is a private monopoly, it's not the state behind it. Yeah? It was fun. Yeah. We got it.
That was the cherry on the Sacha cake, right? Okay, with that, thank you very much for being among the finalists here.
I would have a question. Just for the 30 seconds. Since you are communicating a lot with the authorities, what kind of language do you use by communicating with them? And have you ever considered to work on the special language in the communication with the authorities to be understood way better what we from the practical and operating side are meaning, that they can digest well way better what we are saying?
Yeah, I assume you're not expecting that my answer is I'm using the German language, of course, but it's the narrative. Yeah, I think. Well, this year I'm practicing gaming law for 30 years, advising, and I started with casinos, land-based, and so I spoke to many regulators, and I must say we always had a good relationship with each other, and that's not normal. I would say it's even the exception, just because what we discussed a few hours before. The regulators, if they take over new regulation, they start from scratch. They are reluctant, they are not certain in making decisions, and you feel that. And so the first thing, I think, what is important for my communication with regulators, put them on eyesight, treat them respectfully, let them make mistakes, but don't treat them like they made mistakes. And also, it is so important, they should never lose their face. And they appreciate it, and they know exactly that you're treating them this way. So then you build up this level of trust and confidence. And I also, I think we've made it, if it is possible, to discuss things over the phone, not just exchanging letters, hearing letters, and all these things. So say, let's find solutions. This constructive dialogue, that is key. So language is more communication, and it's a respectful communication, and then it pays back. From both sides, that's important.
And about the wording, for example, because my recognition in this situation was that we are speaking two different, let's say, currencies, or we are mentioning two different currencies. Since we are concentrated on the operational side, on the profits, counted in euros, dollars, or Swiss francs, whatever. Of course, the regulators, backed by the politicians, they are counting in the votes. So is there any possibility to build a bridge or to transform on some kind of exchange rate the euros into the votes, or the votes into the euros to make the communication better? I mean with that politicians don't care about our profits. They do care about the new period and being elected and get the budget to spend.
Yeah, it's all about. I think the main topic with within this context of narrative and communication is player protection. It's always a package. The regulator does not consider himself that his task is to protect this industry in making more profits. It's protecting players, and sometimes protecting players against this industry, which is a wrong attitude, but sometimes it's in their mind. So if you touch on these topics, I think it's always necessary to make sure we want the same. We want to protect players, but we can only do this if we are profitable. And with a legal argument, it's back in 73, I think, there was a court decision of the Federal Constitutional Court in Germany dealing with land-based casinos. And they said nobody wants gaming, which today would, of course, they wouldn't say it again. But everybody wants to play, so we have to find regulation. And a casino operator, in this instance specifically, we should collect as many taxes, as many revenues, levies, whatever, as possible. But there must be a share of the operator from the gross gaming revenue that allows him to operate his game reliable and successfully. That means no losses at all. With this argument, I started, when I had my first clients in these days, to cut down the gaming levies, which were too high in these days, in the mid-90s, just because the constitutional court says you don't have to make any losses. Because what happens if you do? You're no longer reliable. You have to find ways how to get more money, and this cannot protect players. This can move to fraudulence and all these things. And that's why it's not so far, there's no far distance between these two goals, profit and protection. It's on the same table, and it needs to be balanced, and that's so important.
That's a very good perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, no more questions.
No more questions.
More drinks.
And a round of applause for the audience.
Yes.